Good evening, everyone. My name's Councillor Pounds and I'm the chair of this East Area Committee. I'd like to welcome you to the committee and to this meeting, which is taking place on Thursday, the 23rd of June, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Please can I welcome new, returning and current members of the East Area Committee. The councillors present include City Councillors Bagent, Bennett, Copley, Davey, Healy, Herbert, Howard, Moore, Pounds, Robertson, Smith and Thornborough. And present also are county councillors Boulat, Shaler, Howitt, Goodliff, and we've received apologies from County Councillor Beckett. Could any members advise me if any names have been forgotten or if there are any other apologies? Everybody here, that's great, lovely. Good, and we also have officers permanently present at the meeting to help us. So we have the Assistant Chief Executive, who's Andrew Lim. We have the Committee Manager, Claire Tunnicliffe, who's also the Committee Advisor. And we have our meeting producer, Boris Hertzik. Thank you very much to those for helping. I do apologise if my voice is a little croaky. I am just on the mend from the dreaded COVID. But if you can't hear me, please just let me know in the chat. I'll try and make it clearer. Councillors may recall at the recent annual meeting that it was agreed to continue to run area committees virtually, which does mean that as a committee we cannot make decisions, but we can discuss local issues. So this meeting is being broadcast live via the council's website, and public speakers are reminded that by speaking and appearing in this meeting, you are giving consent to being recorded. The meeting is automatically recorded and will be available via the council's YouTube pages. The process for each agenda item will be that the relevant officer will give a brief introduction to their report. Councillors and members of the public participating in the meeting will be invited to type "speak" in the chat function if they would like to ask a question or make a statement. The committee manager will check the Democratic Services email box as well, just in case we've had any public questions submitted, and they will read out those that are received. And for the comfort of councillors, officers and the public, if a short break's required, I will call one, or you can drop a note in the chat if I don't. So if everyone's happy with that, we can move on to agenda item 2. I would like any councillors please to advise me if they have any declarations of interests, and also please to identify which declaration your interest relates to. Councillor Mike Davey, please.
Just in case it comes up, I'm a board member of Cambridge Investment Partnerships, which is the body that is overseeing the developments at ironworks and timberworks. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Anyone else? No, if you do think of anything, just jot it in if you do at any point during the evening. All right, we now move on to item 3, and this are the notes of the previous meeting. Are there any concerns that councillors would like to raise? No, we're all happy with the notes. That's great. Could I also remind members that could you note the actions please on agenda item 4, and if you have any further updates, can you outside of this meeting please just inform the committee manager. You'll see that in the agenda, the action sheet. So now we move on to agenda item 5, which is policing and safer neighbourhoods. We're really pleased to be joined by Sergeant Brad Mundy from Cambridgeshire Constabulary, and also from the Antisocial Behaviour Officer, Rachel Fairfield. So welcome, Rachel and Brad. Can I ask, first of all then, Sergeant Mundy to provide us an update on the activities since Well, you have not, I think, attended this committee before, but if you can just provide us an update on activities since the last committee meeting, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in post in the East for 6 weeks now, but I've had a sit down with Jim Stevenson, who will be returning to the position very soon, and had a chat with him about this. And I'll go through the updates we've got. So in relation to antisocial driving, objective was set to mitigate the impact of antisocial driving on residents in the east of the city, and identify and act against repeat antisocial drivers. Actions taken. There is now 2 citywide operations in place to tackle antisocial driving. One relates specifically to volume based, so exhaust that shouldn't be fitted to vehicles, and large groups of vehicles meeting up, causing noise-based nuisance. And then there's one which is a more general antisocial driving operation. Both these operations are now heavily supported by the Special Constabulary, who have a dedicated team of volunteer officers committed to speed monitoring operations. So Special Inspector Stephen Moody now runs a team specifically looking at speed awareness and speed watch. And he is at the moment looking at diversifying that team and becoming an antisocial driving team. So a much more generalised team that will cover the whole south of the county. So they've become very helpful in assisting with this across the city. Specific to the East team, our officers have taken a big focus on the use of e-scooters across our area of the city, being used antisocially and in criminal activity as well. So they've drawn our attention for all of the wrong reasons, really. One thing we have been able to do quite successfully is tie in with Voy, so the company that owns the scooters that are the recognised rental scooter scheme within the city. Obviously, their ability to people's ability to just pick up and use them at will has created a bit of an issue. There is very specific rules of use of them, but they're quite readily being ignored. So Voy has been able to provide us with an app, for lack of a better word, which we can use to report any offenders on those scooters. It doesn't require them being stopped if we see them either running red lights, scooting two up, scooting recklessly or on pavements or in any pedestrianised areas. All we have to do is grab the little registration off the back of them, report that along with the street name and time. Voy will consider removing their accounts as a kind of a punitive measure for their inappropriate use of the scooters. And Voy have been really helpful with this. It's very successful. It's effective to the point where once we've reported a user, their accounts, if it's going to be suspended, will be suspended within about 20 minutes of us reporting them. So they've been really beneficial at dealing with the antisocial element from the scooters. In relation to the privately owned e-scooters, these do remain a difficult to enforce thing. The sheer number of them causes issues with us. There are a lot of misconceptions out there about what people can and can't do with them, whether people need to have licenses, what sort of insurances they need to have. And that's still misinformation being passed around and people unknowingly committing offences. So is that a hand up to step in now, or?
No, shall we wait
Yep.
Until you finish your report, and then I notice people are using their hands. I am seeing them, but it would be great if you could put it in the chat, please. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they are a difficult issue, the privately owned scooters. What we've been leaning towards is a more educational way of dealing with this, whereby if we're seeing them used antisocially, incorrectly, dangerously, it's really a stop and engage approach. It's warning them of the consequences, warning them that your standard traffic offences do still apply to these scooters. and the risks around them. We have got powers to seize the scooters, and we have had to do that on various occasions. But we are very much leaning towards educating people towards their use rather than just enforcing seizures for them to take the scooter back and carry on doing what they're doing. So the current situation with antisocial driving, as ever, a lot of it requires us to be there at the time. What that means from our point of view is we need to be able to, as part of our patrols, target specific areas where we know there is a high volume of these issues. In order for us to do that, we need to keep pushing members of the public to report these issues. What we're seeing is a high amount of these issues raised in social media, a high amount of these issues passed to us by email, via councillors, via other representatives of communities, and a lot of it will come through email or through social media. But what we're not getting is a lot of online reporting or 101 reporting, which is what we use to base a lot of our patrol plans on. If we're seeing a specific area get a lot of the online and phone reports, it's a lot easier for us to respond to base our patrol plans around that area than having to dig through social media and whatnot. So we would push people to keep reporting to us on the regular. We won't be in every area of the East on any given night, but those reports allow us to be in the kind of the main problem area for that night or that week or that at that time. So that's more or less an overview of what's going on with the antisocial driving aspect.
Can I just pause you there,
Yeah.
Sergeant Monday, please, because I've had a request if we could have the questions just on that topic, and because we just have the two topics, it does really make sense. But if councillors could just be mindful that quite a few people have asked to speak, so if you could be reasonably succinct, that would be great. So if you're happy with that, the first person who would like to speak is, well, actually, before I do that, Rachel, was there anything you wanted to add on this topic?
No, not really.
No.
Other than if we receive complaints, we're encouraging anyone contacting us to fill in the online reporting form and call a 101.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if I just go to the questions, if you're happy with that, Sergeant Monday, and then we'll move on to the other topic of the drug dealing. So the first person, please, is Richard, Councillor Robertson, please.
Sorry, I thought I wouldn't be first. Okay, thank you. Very interesting you picking out the problems with the scooters, and but all the, as my understanding is, all the scooters which are not hired from Voi are all illegal if they're on the road, on the pavement, anywhere where they have not got permission to ride. So I would have thought it was relatively easy to do something about them. However, you're doing a lot in that area. What I would like to raise is the matter of electric mopeds. Most of them are food delivery vehicles which are owned by the food companies, presumably, not by the drivers. Therefore, I would have thought the fact that they're nearly all illegal because they're exceeding the 15-mile-an-hour limit and they don't pedal, they have just a throttle, which you should not be possible to drive a moped without pedaling. Therefore, I would have thought you could do something about it by going to the companies and saying, why are you allowing your employees or agents to drive illegal bikes? And that would take an awful lot of trouble off the pavements and off the roads. I mean, the number of times you see an electric moped exceeding the 30-mile-an-hour limit, let alone 15, is just it's just asking for trouble. So that's my thoughts on that subject. Thank you.
And now, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. This is a point about the e-scooters, the non-VOI ones. My understanding is that the case of these being sold legally is that they are can legally be used off-road. However, in practice, I actually have an off-road mobility scooter, and I can tell you that the ones on sale are not fit for purpose. A very brave local volunteer did a test, and on Ditton Meadows, on the grassy area, and came off 30 seconds, 1 minute 30, and then she declined to continue the trial. So I do think that there is a case for stopping the sale, and perhaps our county colleagues would be interested in getting in touch with the Trading Standards Officer.
Thank you for that point. The next person I've got is Councillor Herbert. You're muted, Councillor Herbert. We can't hear you.
Hi, sorry, I was battling with the screen. So yeah, we do have problems in Coleridge with scooters and electric vehicles, particularly as there are a couple of dark kitchens in industrial estates in our ward. So one of the issues is the way that they just rush through the barriers that are only supposed to be for cyclists and pedestrians. But generally, I'd be with Councillor Robertson that they're often the worst in that they just don't look what they're doing. I also wanted to raise chair cycling. 2 people have been sentenced recently for killing cyclists, one on Newmarket Road and one on Barton Road. So I hope, and welcome, Brad. I hope that your team can with the limited resources that you've got, have a particular focus on close passing by fast-moving cars. So I think the danger for me is that post-COVID, driving behaviours got significantly worse, and it really is dangerous, and it's dangerous to pedestrians too. And I wouldn't exclude some of the private hire vehicles operating in the evenings either at the speeds they travel. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Healy.
My question's not it's not covered in the report, so I'm just going to ask it. So I'm very concerned to see that the issues in Burnside and Brookfield are not mentioned anywhere in this report. So there's been several incidents. We've had a couple of flashing incidents a few weeks ago. We've had bins being burned. We've had cars being broken into. We've had bikes being stolen, a whole range. And you know, I'm very concerned about the response by the police. Residents have been raising a lot of issues with me that the police aren't taking it seriously. And, you know, even the fact that's not even mentioned in this report, residents are really concerned. There's a number of women living on their own. There's vulnerable people, and they just don't seem to be taken very seriously. And I just want to see some action. I want to know what's actually happening to address these issues, because they're really concerning. And even I contacted Sergeant Stevenson about a month ago, and I haven't heard anything since. You know, so like, this isn't good enough. There's just so many of these antisocial issues that are happening, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere with the police. Residents are really concerned. They've been contacting me, Romsey councillor, several times, and we're not getting anywhere with it.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Can I just take Councillor Copley in a moment? I think, and Councillor Smith would like to talk on this same topic.
Yeah, it's a related.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a related topic, so I thought it would be really useful to raise it now, because one of the concerns I have is the way in which we've got quite a few wards that have boundaries with each other, not all of which are even in East area, and certainly in the kind of Cherry Hinton Hall part of the ward, which obviously is very near to Burnside and where some of these issues have been happening. I've also had residents recently raising issues around antisocial behaviour. I understand that there was quite a serious attack on a footpath that actually was just outside of Coleridge and went between, the footpath goes between Cherry Hinton and Queen Edith, both of which are in South area. And I have, one of the things I'm slightly concerned about is just to make sure that we really do track these things that cross the area boundaries, because it might be something that we're partially raising that Cherry Hinton and Queen Edith are partially raising, and I just want to make sure we're really triangulating on this, so that, and certainly one of the incidents took place extremely close to our ward, but it wasn't something we were made aware of, and I wonder if we could look to ensure that across ward boundaries, where something is happening very close to a ward boundary, that we are also communicating what's happened and what the actions are where that's possible.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And Councillor Copley, now you wanted, I think, still to talk on the antisocial driving topic.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so these comments just relate to the antisocial driving topic. Yeah, the first was about scooters. I had a resident report to me recently that they'd observed a collision between a scooter and an elderly resident who needed to be taken away by ambulance as a result, and that was on Ditton Meadows. I encouraged the resident to report it, and they've said they had, but I think the vast majority of these kind of things, even if something like an injury like that results, my fear is they don't get reported. And then the second one was, we haven't mentioned as such genuine registered vehicles, as in not the mopeds pretending to be electric bikes, but full-blown mopeds and motorbikes, as in ones with or without learner plates that could be electric or petrol but have number plates, because particularly on the Ditton Meadows side and around the Chisholm Trail, residents reporting seeing those kind of vehicles, which is I think the next logical step that will happen if we keep seeing the kind of vehicles that Councillor Robertson has referred to, that if that's seen as acceptable, we see more people on, you know, genuine road vehicles using pedestrian paths. That one has been reported as well, but yeah, I'd like to raise that concern. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then just we'll finish the last one, please, with Councillor Boulat.
Thank you, Chair. On a similar and related topic, I wanted to raise as well the issue of parking of e-scooters. I mean, especially in Abbey Ward on match days, there are like so many cars obstructing pavements. There are like quite a few vehicles illegally parked as well. Of course, I encourage residents to report this. I'm in many conversations with county enforcement for those who are not police matters, but actually a lot of times, was on the topic of scooters, a lot of the time scooters are also parked in a very untidy way. And when we mix this with cars that are, you know, antisocially parked or often illegally parked on match days, this could cause a lot of accessibility issues, especially on roads like Newmarket Road or around the football ground. So I wanted to raise this additional concern that really is exacerbated in those event times. So I was wondering, what can we do more on ensuring that scooters, especially the Voi scooters, are parked properly? I was in conversations with Voi, with the company. Apparently, after you don't park properly for like 3 times or so, you get your account cancelled. But I'm not sure this is really enforced as much as it could be currently, because I see this issue quite frequently in Abbey. Thank you.
Thank you. And apologies to Councillor Moore. I did write you down, but I missed it. If you would like to speak.
That's fine. Thank you. So I know that there are people in the city who've really been harmed by accidents with the electric scooters. And as is it Sergeant Monday said, it's quite complicated. People don't seem to know or understand the law on this. And I just wonder whether the police could provide some clear rules and regulations. I don't mean very wordy laws, but something that could be shared more easily, that we can share, the police can, and the county council, just so that people do understand what the law is around this. Possibly, from what Richard Robertson said, if a lot of the use is illegal, it might be difficult to be clear about the law if it's all illegal, but that also might be helpful. And it's possibly not something for Cambridge police to do, whether that's a national police responsibility, but I'd be interested to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. So I'd like to come back to you now, Sergeant Mundy, but I would just first of all like to say it was really good news that you mentioned first of all about the noisy driving, and that you've been able to get on top of that, because I know that was causing a lot of people quite a lot of misery, you know, to be woken up night after night by people herring around with very noisy exhaust. So thank you very much for that. If you'd like to, if you're able to respond now to the questions and statements, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, around the noisy vehicles, that is something that is being looked into on a citywide kind of perspective. Sergeant Ems is really fronting that with looking at the potential use of noise monitoring equipment for when we pulled vehicles over. There's a lot of legality issues with using it and whether it becomes admissible evidence, so there's some delays on working out what sort of equipment we can use, but there is plans in the pipework to help us deal with that. In relation to the questions asked then, obviously a lot of them relate to the legality of these electric scooters, and I'll probably answer a lot of questions in saying that yes, in the vast majority of situations they are illegal. The sit on, ride along, pedal bike style ones, they are specifically designed and made to fit into grey areas. They are a difficulty. They have been a difficulty since the moment they were made. You can see that the manufacturers are playing a game. They put a little fake license plate on the back because they knew there was a danger that governments would start to make them have to be registered and things like that. But as it stands, they are sitting in a grey area and causing a lot of difficulty. So we are able to deal with the manner in which they're used at the minute, but they are a difficulty. That's the sit-on ones. The e-scooters themselves, the actual L-shaped, what would have been a push scooter, now battery powered. The privately owned ones of those are illegal to use in public places. They can't be used on roads. They can't be used on footpaths. They shouldn't be used. The difficulty we have in policing them is the sheer number of them. When there's such a volume of these scooters being used, what we have to focus on is the one people using them dangerously first. We have to focus on getting the message out, and the difficulty we have on top of that is now I'm told there's pushes for legislation to be changed to make them legal. This all creates massive grey areas, and the practicality of policing them is difficult. In essence, when we're out and about, if we're seeing them, they're being used dangerously, we're dealing with it. But for the most part, the sheer volume of how many of how many of them there are about, if we dealt with every single one we saw, we would never attend an incident. We'd never be able to deal with anything else. So, yeah, I agree. There are issues with their legality, but we have to be selective about how we're dealing with them. We have to be pragmatic about it, and that does at times mean using discretion. I'm hoping as legislation is pushed and changed, either they will be made legal and we can start enforcing specific offences against them, or it just becomes a case of they're outright banned. But the problem is they're so readily available, even if they are banned, or even if road traffic law becomes that such that they are fully banned, they're still going to be purchased, they're still going to be available. They are here. We just have to manage them as and when we can. Like I say, that's probably going to answer a few of the questions I've been asked. In relation to Councillor Bennett, you mentioned about the Voice scooters in reference to mobility scooters saying not fit for purpose. Can you specify what you mean about some testing that was done on Ditton Meadows, please?
Oh yes, what I meant was that these are not the Voice scooters. These are similar scooters which have been purchased privately by residents. Residents have then tried to take them back to a shop, saying that actually this isn't legal for me to use. Can I have my money back? Which sounded like a good ploy, but of course they've got nowhere. So some of the more annoyed residents have come out with me onto Ditton Meadows, which is owned by Keyes College, and we've gone onto the grassland and we've demonstrated that you cannot actually drive these off-road because they don't have the right sort of wheels for stability, and people were coming off in between 30 seconds to 90 seconds. But for some strange reason, after we'd done a couple of these, people seemed to be quite keen not to continue. But after that, I tried to contact the trading standards officer at the county council and discovered that I seemed to be pushed over to Citizens Advice Bureau. But clearly, if they're being driven off road and they're not fit for purpose, that's a safety issue, which is something that trading standards officers can get involved with. So I thought that might be a good line. I do myself ride a mobility scooter, which is supposedly an off-road model, and I have things like fat wheels, I have additional stabilisers so that it's fit for purpose, and clearly you don't have any of these on a 35 quid scooter from Halfords. Hope that helps.
Yeah, so is it specifically Halfords that are regularly selling these, or are these readily available all over the place?
As far as I can see, you can get them all over the place. We no longer have our Argos in Newmarket Road, but they used to do them. Halfords did them, and I believe you can also get them mail order and off eBay.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that kind of speaks to what I was saying about the availability of kind of vehicles and methods of transport like this. With regards to them being fit for purpose, yeah, I would agree with you. I would have thought that was something trading standards would have an interest in. As for their sale, I'm not sure there's anything police can do about that, but that I would have thought would be a trading standards issue.
Thanks, Sergeant Mender. Could we move on to the point that Councillor Healy made, and also Councillor Smith, as time is just getting on a little bit now. So
yeah, absolutely. So Burnside and Brookfield. So first off, I'll very quickly go on. I'll have a chat about the flashings that were mentioned. There has been a significant series of flashings reported in that area. That has been from, off the top of my head, October last year until the last one about 3 weeks ago. They are all being investigated by a joint team of officers from the South Neighbourhood Team and East Neighbourhood Team. We've worked in collaboration over that issue because it's very much snaky path based, which kind of branches between the two areas. We've worked collaboratively on that. I can't go too far into it. What I'll say at the minute is we are in contact with all victims. We have currently had one suspect in custody and inquiries are ongoing with that suspect. We are still looking to confirm if this is one suspect with a very long line of offending, or if we have multiple offenders in that area. But that has been and continues to be a priority for both South and East at the moment. In regards to residents feeling that police aren't taking it seriously, what I would say is in a situation like this, when we're getting a report of a lot of these issues in an area like Snaky Path, we have to weigh the odds a little bit. So in this situation, we had to weigh up public reassurance and our ability to catch this offender. Now, public reassurance, we would throw uniformed officers into the mix. We would show presence. We would make it people very aware that we're there. In regards to this series, we had to do a different tactic in which we had to go there and not be visible. We had to be plainclothes. We had to be blending in. So we have to, when we're doing that, take it on the chin that unfortunately residents may think that we're not taking it seriously, we're not there. I can give you my assurances. We have been there and we have been there a lot. The fact that we've not been seen actually means that my team have been doing it well. I'll strangely take that as a compliment, but we have been there, I can assure you on that. We have put tens and tens of officers' hours into this series in that area. With regards to bins being burned and things like that, that's the first I've heard of bins being burned. That's not to say it hasn't been reported, but at the moment, while we've been scanning that area, we've been looking for very specific types of offending, and that may be one that's just slipped past me. But yeah, I can assure you we have been in that area. We have been looking into the issues, and we've just been doing it a bit more quietly than we sometimes would.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. If everyone's happy now, I think your next topic was cycle theft, and you wrote a very extensive report and clear report. Do you have anything to add to that? I'm just conscious of the time, and I know that I think the final topic is something that people will want to talk to you about.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add to that. If people are happy to move on to just questions about that, I'm happy to do that.
Did anybody want to ask a question or comment on cycle theft? I do know that cycle crime task and finish group are very pleased actually with the progress that's been made on specifically catching a few serial offenders, and that they feel that they've been improving the statistics for cycle crime considerably just recently.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of positive results from various angles with cycle crime. We've had some very good results that we've been able to publicise recently. One of the people mentioned in the report I've given, who was given a CBO and has since been imprisoned for breaching. Since I actually wrote that report, has been released from prison, has breached again, and is already now back inside. So we're taking a very kind of CBO heavy approach to dealing with it. But at the moment, it appears to be having a really good outcome.
Good. I don't think we've got any more questions on that. So may we move on to the third area, please, Sergeant Monday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the drug dealing and the child criminal concerns for young people.
Okay, so so action taken in regards to this. Let me first explain. There's two very distinct types of drug dealing that we currently have in the East area. We have an influx of county lines drug dealing, which is people travelling in from outside the county to deal. To my knowledge, we currently, and by currently I mean in the past 2 weeks, are aware of 4 county lines operating in the east of the city, and I would quantify that by saying at least. We know we have 4 that we are receiving information about, 4 that we are taking action on. But the ownership of the county lines elements predominantly sits with our neighbourhood support team. So we have a neighbourhood support team who has ownership of county lines policing within the south of the county. They're a very proactive team, and they do a lot of work independently of us, but they also do a lot of work with us. And there's a lot of intelligence information passed back and forth between our two teams to make sure that county lines in the east of the city is managed. Where the east neighbourhood team comes into it more predominantly is our homegrown dealing. So that is our local board residents who are local drug users or involved in the local drugs market, and they are people that have been in the city for a long time, have addresses here, are residents here, and are established. They're either established or they're people that have been in the city and have been on police radar for a long time from a young age who are becoming more entrenched in it. So we look more into the homegrown dealing side of it. There is a natural crossover in a lot of our homegrown drugs community. Will quite often be recruited or taken advantage of by county lines. And that's where we tie in with our neighbourhood support team. So the drug dealing in the area at the moment is, I'm sad to say, rife. We have had an influx of county lines, and we have had, as a result, a massive influx of street-based dealing. And unfortunately, that has had a negative effect on the youth within the city. As street-based dealing goes up, more and more young offenders do get pulled into that world. We have, however, set up some new operations, citywide operations again, and some county-wide operations to start taking a more proactive approach to some of that. So one operation we have is something called Op Guardian, which is helping identify young people on the peripheries of offending who are starting to escalate in their behaviour and starting to become more high risk. And that's allowed us to engage with people at a lot younger age, and is having some positive impacts on getting not just the young people but their family support and getting them out of that situation. There's a bit more detail to read through, but in summary, the drugs issue is still here. County Lines is escalating, but we are getting a handle on it with the help of our NST team, and we have designed and built some operations around young people to ensure that we're not missing those that we have the opportunity to help get out of that world now.
Thank you very much. And can I ask Antisocial Behaviour Officer Rachel Fairhead, if you've got something you'd like to add, Rachel?
Yes, so further down the report in our bit, we our team lead on the CAMS Against County Lines project, which is to raise awareness about child criminal exploitation, county lines issues. We're going out to schools and training, showing a video that's been commissioned to young people. It's a very good video, and it's very much contradicts the glamorous side that they may have been told, that it involves money and it's an easy way to make cash, and it gives a darker picture for youngsters. It's going well. We've had some really positive feedback from that, and actually some children have come forward and to say that they want to get out and they've been involved in it. So it's really positive project.
Thank you very much. Now we've got some questions. First of all, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. Yes. Drug dealing does upset local residents. They see this illegal behaviour on the street. They're also aware that the money that is used to buy the drugs is often obtained by illegal ways, and they worry about that. I know that we've had several places in Petersfield identified for particular attention and CCTV if it's available. But I'd like to know whether you feel there's enough CCTV facility available for the areas that need to be covered. I get the impression we've only got one mobile camera for that particular area of the city. But perhaps we can have some feedback on that. I think we must recognise that this is one of the topics which we want particular attention to continue on. And the other one, of course, be the scooters, I suspect. There may be a third one as well, but this one, drugs, as I say, it does upset people. It upsets lots of lives as well, those who get involved in it, as the Sergeant has said. Finally, I'd like to ask the Sergeant what sort of resources you've got at the moment. I know Sergeant Stevenson has been working in Peterborough for only 6 months now, I think, and you say he's coming back. Is that going to mean your numbers are going to be complete, or are you still missing some of the officers you should have in your area? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Herbert.
Yeah, I agree that this should remain the central and top priority because it's the biggest risk, biggest harm in our area. And that would include ensuring that there's funding to help the exploited teenagers, often in families that have got challenges. I just wanted to add, Brad, the issue during the summer of recreation grounds, because there's even more of an overlap in where teenagers are out and about in the evenings and some of this activity. And it is quite blatant now. I mean, it's better than if it's done by cuckooing in exploited people's houses, but it is quite blatant. And finally, Chair, it's our job to decide whether or not we keep these three priorities. So I think you're probably coming to that, but I would say that the ones we've got are probably the right ones, unless someone else says different. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Healy, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would, one of the things that keeps coming up with us in terms of our residents is they know the addresses where they're, the dealing's happening. So I suppose like I just want like some practical advice, like you know, what should we be advising them, and also if they do report it, because some of them are nervous because they're nervous if they report it, the neighbours will know it's them. And in terms of like what action will you actually be taking if they do report it?
Thank you. I think that's all the questions. So if I come back to you, please, Sergeant Monday.
Okay, so I'll first Councillor Robertson. So with regards to CCTV, short answer is yes. I think there is sufficient CCTV we have. The problem with CCTV in trying to combat drug dealing is that it's so transient that the second a camera is put in place, they find a new place to do it. You know, the second they know we know where they're dealing, they find a new place that we're not sure about yet. So while CCTV can be helpful in stopping the gathering of groups and users, the actual dealing itself will invariably be where there are no cameras, where cameras wouldn't work. It is still the kind of stereotypical dark, dingy corners and the back alleys. Realistically, CCTV, while it's helpful, it's boots on the ground that catch the deals in action. Yeah, so like I say, as soon as we had a camera in place that we thought is going to catch some, they'd find somewhere else to go and do it. So yeah, I appreciate where you're coming from, but it's boots on grounds over CCTV for me any day. Councillor Herbert, in relation to your recreation grounds you mentioned, so we have just been given funding, I believe it's government funding, and it's to allow for special duties to be put in place over, I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturdays and Sundays every week, to address, I mean, it's intended to combat any potential rises in violent crime in public spaces over the summer. It's government led, and that's what the funding is there for. The net result of that is there are going to be officers on specified patrols in those areas. Each area of the city, the sergeants have been asked to draw up a hotspot briefing of which areas, which open spaces we think need to be targeted by those patrols. So yeah, as a result of that, that is in hand. Those areas will have a bit of extra patrol to them. Sorry, and Councillor Healy, for your residents, so if your residents are aware of addresses and need to report them, it has to come to us by formal means. So in the past, we've had yourselves, councillors, email us and let us know what residents are telling us. The problem when we receive information is it has to be sanitised. So we have to hand that information to intelligence analysts who will look at what the information is and where the information has come from, and they will make an assessment. Can we disseminate this information safely? So they will look at, say someone gives us an address and says this activity is happening there. They'll look at that address, they'll look at the people involved, and they'll go, okay, is this something that lots of people are going to know about? If it's something that lots of people are going to know about, we can tell officers about it because it's not going to put anyone at risk. If they look at it and go, hang on a minute, there's only one person that would be able to tell this information. There's only one person that would be able to see in this window or hear through this door. We won't disseminate or we won't act on that information, because to act on that information would identify who had told us and put them at risk. Okay? So all the intelligence we receive has that assessment put to it. It is sanitised by our intelligence analyst before it comes anywhere near officers. Mm-hmm. So we will never act on information that puts anyone at risk. We will not see information if it puts anyone at risk. If it's too high risk, if it puts anyone directly in the line of fire, it won't come to us to action. So people need to report it ideally online or via 101 so that it can get onto our system, and then it can be sanitised properly and it will come to us. What we do have is people will sometimes think, I've told them once, they've done nothing. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes when we've got that first bit of information, we're just waiting for 2 or 3 more bits that protect everyone that's talking to us, allow us to be sure of what our plan is, and then we can act. We can't always act on one bit alone, but if we get multiple bits so we can build a picture, then we can act on it. But if they go through those channels of online reporting and 101, they should be sound. That we have those measures in place to make sure people are protected. I've just seen in the chat about the staffing levels. So I was brought in I'm originally from the North City team. I was brought in while Jim Stevenson was away. So that change in sergeant in didn't affect the staffing numbers for East City MPT at all. East City MPT remains 6 PCs and a sergeant. And when Jim comes back, that will remain the same. There is no immediate plans for that number to go up, despite how much I may whinge and moan. 6 and a sergeant is the allocation for each area, and East City is at full quota at the moment.
Thank you very much. That's really, really useful. Can I just go back to Councillor Davey, who did have his hand up? It was the yellow hand. I didn't see.
Yeah, thanks, Di. Thank you very much, Chair. It was up and I came late, so apologies. Sergeant Monday, I wouldn't disagree at all with your comment about boots on the ground are the key priority, and I don't think anybody in the room is going to disagree that you've been criminally underfunded as a constabulary over the past 10, 12 years. I think my problem is, though, we do have CCTV, and when it's in, it needs to work. And although I'm a Petersfield councillor, I'm aware of problems in Abbey when we've had temporary, particularly temporary CCTV, to the point whereby colleagues at the control centre in Huntingdon didn't even know it was in. And then when it was reported, there were then issues about not being able to see what was on the screen. Now, oddly enough, in that instance, it's better not to have the CCTV screen than it is to have it, because people then have a false sense of security. But I just wonder, I've taken it up with the City Council colleagues, so they're aware. I wonder if, again, there could be a kind of corresponding taking it up through the constabulary, because obviously they need to be aware that there are screens in there and then use them accordingly. So, as I say, I wholeheartedly agree. There's nothing better than boots on the ground. But when we have CCTV, it's better when it's used effectively. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So this is a is it a county council owned camera that they're not aware they've fitted?
It was a city council. I mean, it gets so complicated, Brad, because it's a city council camera that was a temporary camera that was placed to stop particular level of crime. It was placed on a county council lamp. And then, of course, then feedback went back to your contact centre, who didn't know the camera was there in the first place. So, it's, as ever, the bureaucracy is a nightmare. But nonetheless, if it's there, we need to make sure it's working effectively. And then there was a second offence, and they couldn't see the images were such they couldn't actually identify the offender. So it was a camera in a place that your folk didn't know, and not only that, the camera was not effective in identifying and couldn't work effectively. So there's a bit about the testing of implications, I think, if I'm honest. Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Well, at the very least, I have the perfect man on my team at the moment who can do a bit of digging on that, and at the very least, work out who is controlling that camera and how we can act.
If it's any use to you, I think because it's temporary, the camera's now moved away from there. But it's a principle. If it goes elsewhere, the actual testing's done. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much for that point, Councillor Davey. Can I just ask Rachel if you had anything else that you wanted to add to?
I was just typing into the chat that I'd like to speak. If Brad does need any clarity on the temporary CCTV cameras that are run, his former colleague and now my current colleague Tom Eek would be the gentleman to get in contact with. If he has any questions, Tom will be able to collate any information that you may need. Other than that, I don't have anything to add other than what's already in our report, but I'm happy to take any questions from any councillors that have, obviously I'm conscious of time as well.
Yeah.
If you'd like me to go through the report, I'm happy to do so, but if not, I'll take any questions you may have.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a really useful discussion. Are there any final questions before we move on? Just bear and there's a police email address. Thank you very much, Councillor Herbert, for putting that in the chat. That's very useful. And if you want to ask anything further, you can email Rachel as well. Yeah, I think we're there on that. I hope you don't mind that I spent a bit longer on that, because it's been a really, really useful discussion. And thank you very, very much, Sergeant Mundy and Rachel Fairhead, for giving us that really, really useful discussion. So now we move on.
Could we confirm, Chair, the 3 priorities, they continue?
Yes, from my perspective, that they are still the 3 top priorities. Would you agree with that, Sergeant Mundy and Rachel? That
Yeah, at this point, we have no other issues arising in the east that are more pressing. So yeah.
Great, that's good. I think everybody's happy with that. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So our next
on that note, I'm going to have to chip out now. Apologies for that, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. You have your email.
Thank you, councillors.
And thank you, Rachel, as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. So our next item, item 6, was the Greater Cambridge Partnership consultation about the road classification. Now, the GCP members are actually not able to attend tonight, so we have a very detailed report on the agenda, and we've all, as members, we've all had a lot of briefings about this. So there is currently a consultation going on. So what I suggest, as time has got on, unless anyone has a very sort of pertinent question they would like to ask that one of the county councillors, such as Councillor Shayler, can answer, I would say to put any questions you have to email to the committee manager, which is Claire Tunnicliffe, and she will see that they go straight to the GCP. So is there anybody who just wanted to raise anything on item 6 at all? And are there any queries from the public, please? Claire?
No, there isn't.
Thank you. I think all the public are on holiday actually, because we've not had much input from them at all tonight. So there's just a question, please, from Councillor Copley.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, did you want me to say the question to the committee manager now, or put it by email?
I think if you put it in the email.
Yeah.
That's probably, I think, the best way forward on this one. So Councillor Healy, I think that's a new hand, is it? Oh.
No, it was actually on the last item. So I didn't agree with the 3 priorities being brought forward. So I was just going to suggest that we add an antisocial behaviour as well. But we could add it on to the 3rd one. So the one around young people and drugs, maybe we could just add on to the end an antisocial behaviour, because, as I said, I'm really concerned about some of the things that have been going on in Burnside over a sustained period, and I think we really need to focus and prioritise them.
Thanks, yeah. So I think probably the best way is that the best way, Claire, if you forward that to...
Yes, I can add that for the police for their consideration. I will do that after this meeting and send it to them directly.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks, yeah. So if there's nothing more on Councillor Herbert, did you want to speak on the GCP?
No, it's just briefly to add to what Councillor Healy said, that there could be a link with the antisocial behaviour around Walpole Road shops, because there's a route through to there anyway. So I think, I think it's a good idea, Chair, that we add that.
Right. So Claire will do that for us. Right. So if you're happy to move on now without a break, is there anybody who would particularly like a break? We've got an open forum session, which is basically for questions, any pertinent questions that people have tonight. And we don't have any members of the public here, so we don't have any questions from the public that we can look at.
No, there's no emails, Chair, that come in.
Thank you. Right. So I have Councillor Copley.
Yes, actually not for the open forum, but for the item 5 on the agenda, new developments in Coleridge Ward, whether that was being deferred or similar. I don't think I missed it. On the
Sorry, I didn't
on the public version of the agenda, there was an item 5, new developments in Coleridge Ward.
Oh, it's not on my list.
But there was no linked item for it, so I assume it's been deferred.
Possibly. I wonder if a Coleridge councillor could help us out with that one as to what's happening there, because I don't know.
If I may, we was asked to put that on the agenda, and the officer who would be coming isn't available. So any questions I can take back, but they will be coming to the next meeting if members would like them on the agenda.
Oh, thank you very much, Claire. So if it's something you wanted to make urgently, Councillor Copley, if you could email Claire Tunnicliffe, but otherwise it's coming to the next meeting. Okay. So if we're all happy with that one, the open forum then, are there any other topics then that anybody would like to raise tonight? No? Just Councillor Herbert.
Well, just briefly, and Andrew Lim's with us. I'm not sure we did enough publicity about the meeting this time. So we generally have some people that are rudely called regulars before, but other people come along on different issues. So I just wondered if we could just do a bit better publicity. And I don't know whether other area committees have seen similar. But if we do some publicity, I think online can work. But if not, it may be that to engage the public, we need to start meeting in person again.
I think that's a discussion we're going to have, isn't it? I think. Do you have any other suggestions, Councillor Herbert, for publicity? I mean, I think you're muted. Yeah.
There's the world of Twitters and Facebook bookers, but no, I think it would just be worth the chairs of the area committees discussing with officers. Are there ways that the council could help publicise them? And definitely some use of local notice boards to put our 3 or 4 dates of the year in, and just ways, because a
poster or two.
And it would be useful just to see if we could give them some more publicity. I know Councillor Davis was also prompting an interesting discussion whether we should be more ward focused or area focused, but maybe we could try a bit more publicity first.
Thanks. Yeah. So Andrew Lim has said that he's going to ask the team to see what they can do for our next one, which was September, I believe. Or yeah.
Thanks, Chair, and Andrew.
Well, in that case, I think
the raid might want to speak again.
I'm not seeing a hand or a... Right, Councillor.
Yeah, I have put in the chat that I wanted to speak.
Oh, yeah, it's all right. It's winging down a bit fast. Yeah, sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah,
it's all right. Well, since we're looking for items for the public forum, I'll take up some air. Just 2 quick things. One, just to say, for members of the public watching, really big well done to everyone, for all the street parties and the Jubilee, in recent weeks. It's been fantastic to see, and even in our ward in Romsey, there was just so much hard work for the volunteers to put on the parties, and just, really well done to all of them. It's really great, and it was great to see some of the grants that the people applied for, to be able to hold these parties. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I just wanted to say quickly was, also for members of the public watching, we obviously are having this consultation around the Beehive redevelopment. So, you know, myself and Romsey councillors and Petersfield councillors and I know that Naomi was there, sorry, Councillor Bennett was there from Abbey as well. We're all at that, and I would just really encourage members of the public to engage in the consultation process. They're really at the very early stages right now. And, you know, I'd really encourage people to sort of advocate and to, you know, ask for what they want to see in this development. You know, I certainly was asking for facilities for our teenagers and young people, and making sure, you know, issues around women's safety and communal facilities for the community as well. But I would really, you know, urge you know, our local community in East Area to really engage with this consultation process.
Yes, I'd just like to reinforce that, because the company actually got in touch with me yesterday just to say exactly that they really do want the communities around to engage with them, because it's at very, very early stages at the moment as to what goes on the site. And so it's a big opportunity for us all to have a lot of input. Lovely. Well, I think I'm not seeing any more hands up. I'm not having any more questions. So I think I will say that I'm happy now to draw the meeting to a close. And just to say again that I felt that was a really, really useful discussion with Sergeant Monday and Rachel Fairhead. And I know that it's a really big topic that comes up with my residents and with the other Romsey councillors, but also that because of the nature of our geography, Petersfield, Coleridge, Abbey and Romsey are adjoining, and our problems are everybody's problems, and that things are often happening and crossing the wall boundaries. So I felt that was a really particularly useful discussion, helpful for us councillors, but I think also our input to them, the police, helpful for them in the way that they're dealing with these problems. And I was also pleased with his optimistic, actually. He felt that they were moving forward, and that was really, really pleasing. Yeah, great. So I'll just say then, thank you to everyone who's participated in the committee this evening. The next meeting is scheduled for the 15th of September, and we're going to try and see if we can encourage more people, more members of the public to be aware and to join us. Thank you all very much for your input. I wish you a good evening, and could the meeting producer now please terminate our meeting? Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.